I didn't know what to make of Akane Banashi when it was first announced. I figured it would definitely have its very passionate fans, but I didn't know if it would necessarily appeal to me. Rakugo as a topic is not something that I think I would necessarily gravitate towards. And now, having actually sat down and watched the existing 12 episodes, I can say this is genuinely a very enjoyable experience. And one that I think maybe better than anything else, at least that I'm aware of, helps to present Rakugo in a way that will make this art form appealing and interesting for people who do not already have said interest baked into them. And a lot of that comes down to two things. The fact that this show understands that Rakugo is not something that everyone's already going to know about going into it, or something that everybody's going to care about, even if they do know about it. And also simply just due to the fact that the main character, Akane, is such a consistent delight to watch on screen throughout the entire series. This is a show, I think much like Chihaya Furu, understands that Rakugo is not something that appeals to everyone. It is not something that many people, obviously even more so in the West than in Japan, know or care about, and it realizes that in order to make people care about Rakugo, the main focus of this series, it needs to put in the effort to not only make it interesting, but not to let it get too convoluted. That's not to say it doesn't delve into a lot of specifics about Rakugo as it goes on, but it doesn't throw all of that at you in the beginning. It doesn't just dump you in the deep end and expect you to swim. The show recognizes that it needs to ease the viewer into this, which is exactly what Chihaya Furu did with respect to Karuta. That was something that, even in Japan, people wouldn't necessarily know or care about. And it recognized that. It knew it needed to make it presentable and interesting, instead of just saying, well, whether you know about it or not, we're just going to throw you in and hope for the best. And shows that do that take a subject matter that I may not care about, that other viewers may not care about, and is able to present it in a way that never feels overwhelming, convoluted, or unapproachable. That's always something I'm going to appreciate in a piece of media. This show recognizes that in the modern day, Rakugo is going to struggle to remain relevant. There are so many other things that are going to take up people's time and interests. Are people really going to want to sit and listen to one person on a stage perform some story that's hundreds of years old, a story that maybe they've already heard about in some other form? Is that going to be appealing to people? This show recognizes that Rakugo is going to have those struggles in the modern day, and nevertheless perseveres to demonstrate why it can still be appealing, why there's still a place for it. And it does that by showing us all the little things that people have to do to make their performances captivating to the audience. It could be something as simple as changing up your voices for the various characters in this story. It could be maintaining a level of consistency in your delivery. It could also be the opposite of that and surprising people, doing something in your performance that they are not expecting, changing up the story that they may have heard countless times before, especially if they are an avid listener of Rakugo. If you do something different, that will catch their attention. But at the same time, you will have people who won't like that, who will say, no, you need to adhere to the traditional version of this story. And then you have questions over, well, what is the traditional version? Is it the version most people know about? Or is it this even earlier version that at some point got changed? Maybe there's a different ending or different aspects. Do you throw those aspects back in to distinguish your performance from others? Or do you go for something more expected, but just play around with your performance, with your voices? There are a lot of little things that you can do to make your performances different, distinguished, and nuanced compared to performances of others and past performances you have done. And we get to witness that many, many times throughout this series as Akane meets other people involved in Rakugo, people in her own particular school and also people from different schools. When she participates in the tournament in the second half of the season, we can see the various different styles that the main performers try out. Some people look at these old stories and say they are not appealing to a modern audience. So one of the things you need to do, in their opinion, to make Rakugo stand out and appealing to people now is to change the various details of the setting of the characters' backgrounds, but ultimately leave the framework of those stories intact. And there's a debate to be had within the show as to whether that's a smart thing to do or not. Do you piss off people who are more interested in adherence to tradition by doing that? Or do you make your story stand out because maybe people have never heard this version of that story because it's something of your own creation? It's your very own unique play on this old story. Is that how you bring people in to this medium? Or do you instead maintain these stories' integrity and just play with your performance? Do you change up your pace? Do you start out slow and then go quick? Do you jump back and forth between those two different styles? Do you maintain a level of consistency so that the story evokes a sense of comfort and familiarity? What attributes and conditions do you try and tailor your performance to in order to captivate your audience? These are all really interesting things, and they don't just have to apply to Rakugo. We see it through the lens of this medium and are able to see the different points of views about what would be the best way to engage your audience, make them happy with your performance, and in the bigger picture, make Rakugo appealing to a modern audience, which is relevant both in the show and in the meta sense of trying to make this show itself appealing to actual viewers in real life. But these lessons could apply to any art form. It has universal relevance outside of just Rakugo. And it's other little things that the show delves into. The histories of these various stories, how they came about, different versions of those stories, alternate endings, what exactly the purpose of the story is, why has it maintained relevance within Rakugo? Is it a story that makes sense to perform at this specific venue? What kind of aspects of your performance, of your delivery, do you need to work on and practice if you want to perform this specific story? Does it have a lot of characters that all need distinct voices? Is it just one character? Is it a story that's mostly narration and doesn't have all that many characters? I think all of that makes this a lot more approachable and interesting. It's not just throwing viewers into a performance of some ancient story and not giving you context for it. When we have Akane telling us, here's the history of this story, here's why it's performed, here's what it means, it makes you, the actual viewer watching this show, have more of an inherent interest in whatever's going on. Now it's not just some random story. Now you know the context for it. Now you know the background. It's this anime recognizing it can't just drop these stories on you and expect you to care. It knows that Rakugo is struggling to make people care, and it needs to put in that extra effort so that you, the viewer, have an actual reason to keep watching and to actually pay attention to these performances. And when characters critique those performances, instead of just zoning out and not having any interest and just end up sitting there waiting for it to be done. It's a level of maturity with respect to Rakugo and its status, its relevance, that I appreciate. The show is able to recognize that this is something that does not automatically appeal to everyone, and it needs to front load all of this effort in order to ease people into it and make you care. And as I said at the start, a big reason that it's able to do that, on top of everything I just said, is just the simple fact that Akane is such a captivating character. Of course, she is very passionate about Rakugo because this is an art form that she's experienced and practiced basically throughout her entire life. Her passion is ever present, but she's not the kind of person who is so overconfident in her abilities that she's immune to any sort of criticism. You see that, yeah, she recognizes when someone does a better performance, when she needs to do certain things to do better. And maybe that's not surprising given what happened to her father, right? She understands that, hey, maybe at any point you could just be expelled. Even if you think you've done a good performance, end up not being well received by the audience for whatever reason. And it certainly is going to keep her on her toes considerably, but it makes her a very approachable and easy to watch character to see her not get so full of herself. Like a lot of characters in, say, like a shonen sports anime probably would be. She knows where she needs to improve, but also this isn't to say that she has no confidence because she is genuinely very skilled. It's like she has the right balance of confidence for her abilities based on the circumstances that she and her father went through, seeing where she comes from, what she and her family have had to deal with, and nevertheless persevere through it all. Seeing her develop her skills, reach out, try and learn things, relying on the other people around her, showing that she is willing to take advice, improve her skills, and not be closed-minded, I think is one of her best qualities. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of it just comes down to how infectious she is. Watching her both in a performance and outside of it, she's just a very well executed character. She's fun, she's quirky, she's passionate. She's the kind of character that I could watch on screen doing whatever. And that's not an easy feat to achieve. And ultimately, it shouldn't be surprising that the character whose name is in the title, the one whose style, whose Banashi we are witnessing develop throughout this series, would need to be as captivating as she is. At the end of the day, I think the ending theme probably has it right. If you watch this show, Akane is definitely going to be on your mind for a long time after. So if you were on the fence about Akane Banashi, give it a shot. Even if you're not super interested in Rakugo, this show will put in the effort to make you invested in what's going on in this series. And at the very least, I think Akane herself is more than enough justification to give this show a chance. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time, take care everyone. Look forward to the next video.